All right, we are live. Let me get my Amazon one going here. And for the next hour or so, we're going to be, let me get my Amazon thing going first, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. There we go. So we're going to be working on this Mele mini PC. This is a fanless mini PC, and I got to pull the specs back up here in a second, which I will add to the chat rooms. Yeah, this is like a lot of Chinese lettering on here. This is a fanless mini PC, so it makes no noise. It's powered with like a lower end Intel processor. And Jake has done a lot of work on it already, but I'm going to be shooting a couple of pieces of B-roll, some things that only I can do, you know, like taking it apart and seeing what we can upgrade on it. I don't think there is much to upgrade with this one, but we will see. This is called the Mele Quieter 3Q. It has 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM and 128 gigabytes of eMMC on board. And I will add that to the chat here once we get cooking. And if you are on YouTube, you might notice that we are at a higher resolution now. You can see the detail of this box in glorious 4K if you are so inclined to watch at that resolution. So I thought some of you might be excited about that, and we talked about that just recently. Joe Tyson is here, Christoph Howard is here, Nigel is here, from London Heathrow as usual. Tristan Leonard is here, hello there. Mako Satario is here. Yes, we're going to do a little live review. Jake has done a lot of the performance stuff, but there's a few things that I'll probably run real quick on it. We'll test the Linux and a few other things with it. And Tristan's been looking at this. So this is not a tablet. It is a little mini PC, unless you're using your Tab 8 in that way. And I'm just going to put the specs. Here, we'll get the box out so you can see what it looks like. I'll put the specs on the, whoa, there's a metal plate in there. I thought that was the plate in my head coming out, but no. This is a, focus. This is a mini PC with no fan. I'll give you the overhead. Still having some trouble with my cameras here. See, the dynamic range on this camera is not great. So I can turn down, I guess if I turn down the exposure a little bit, that will suffice. And let me just get a little more organized here, and we'll get moving. And Christoph, yes, we will be, more than likely, we will stay 4K. I was appreciative for all of the feedback that I got. So I did change up the camera so we have less motion blur now, so that's good. And then if we look here, I think, is that camera? Yeah, so all the cameras now, I've adjusted the shutter speed so that we shouldn't have any motion blur or as much as we had before. And we are broadcasting in a glorious 4K. So yeah, looks great. Remix Plum is here. John Richardson is here, hello there. And Tristan wants to use it as a remote PC. It has to be perfect for that. I think this would be a great little like headless server kind of deal, for sure, because it's got, and I've been, I keep getting distracted. Let me put the specs in the chat so that everyone will know what's inside of this. So this is an Intel, and I'll put it on the Amazon chat too. This is an Intel N5105 processor. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM. This actually would make a pretty good Plex server. We'll see how it does with the hardware. Well, I know it'll do well with the hardware encoding. The temperature is what I'm most concerned about. 128 gigabytes of eMMC. And then the question is whether or not the machine here will have a full-purpose USB-C port, because a lot of these mini PCs now do, and they give you like 3 display outputs. This one says definitely 2, but we'll see if we can do more than that. Let me go onto the Amazon chat here and add my chat to this as well. And Specs. All right, there we go. So now, if we look at the label here, has Windows 11 Pro on board. That's not a bad deal for the price. Wi-Fi 6, so we'll test that. And it has 4x USB 3, 2, okay, so it has 2 HDMI that support 4K 60, so that's good. All right. And then it's got an M.2 2280 for NVMe only, so it does not support MSATA. So it's, you know, it looks pretty well spec'd. Let's take it out of the box and see what we've got. Now, Jake already did his thing with this, so we're doing all the other stuff that I like to get done before we move too much further here. And you have a warning label on the top. This fanless mini PC dissipates heat through the housing containing heat dissipating material. The surface of the product may get warm, which is what you would expect. Okay, the mini PC does not contain a power delivery controller, cannot support the Type-C power adapter with a PD protocol, and the maximum voltage limit is 26 volts. So please use the 12-volt that's good to know. Let me peel this off here real quick. I'm going to put this here. So we saw another product recently. I think it was that thing from whatchamacallit, that video device that we looked at had the same issue. So I'm going to make a note of that. And I'm guessing, therefore, it's probably not going to be a full-service USB-C port because it won't work with USB power delivery. So let me do a note on this one. USB-C does not support PD, recommends 12-volt, 2-amp only. And you know, it's kind of an odd thing to see a 12-volt power adapter with a USB-C port on it, right? We don't ever see that. So they really want you to use their power adapter. So it's kind of a proprietary thing. Yeah, this is 12 volts, 2 amps out of the power adapter. Very odd. All right, so let's put the power adapter together here. Am I missing something here? Let's see, here it goes. Ah, all right, so we got that going. And now we will, so here, I'll show you the unit itself so you can get a feel for it. If you're watching on the YouTube, you'll see this in glorious 4K. So we have a power button. We have 3 USB 3 ports over here. On the back, we have another USB 3 port, a micro SD card slot, 2 HDMI, the funky USB-C input, and gigabit Ethernet. And now we are going to take it apart because I want to get a view of the inside. So we will do that next. Stanko says the 4K is still working good. Excellent. And Serial Tune says, my next upgrade will be uncompressed true HD audio. Yes, and HDR, Dolby Vision. We're going to go for the gamut. Lacto is here. GMT +1. I think I'm GMT -4, so you're later on in the day than I am. How much better than Gemini Lake are these? I would say it's probably about 20%. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Mike says, this sounds like good afternoon fun. Yes, it will be fun. And Jake is Producer Jake, so if you go to Lon.TV/dispatches, you can see Producer Jake because he went to CES for me this year because I came down with a case of the Rona before I left, or before I was supposed to go. Long story. So I sent Jake, who was really excited to go to Vegas, and he did a great job. So Jake also does a lot of these PCs for me, because we've got the PC review process kind of down to a pretty good formula now. And what's nice is that I can give Jake the hardware, and he gets them set up, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into setting up a PC. just getting even the software side is complicated. I have found that my cameras struggle a bit, as you can see. It struggles a bit with autofocus now that they're at 4K. And the other problem I have is that the iris, I didn't have this issue before, but a lot of people were noticing a lot of motion blur at the new resolution, so I had to turn the shutter speed from 30 to 60. And in doing so, as you can see, it gets a lot darker. And when the camera is zoomed in, you can only see so much. So I may have to increase my light intensity to, because see how bright it is on this one, but this one's not zoomed in as far. All right, so how do we get this case off of it? Oh, there it goes. Just plates right out there. Okay, so the inside. Yeah, so the RAM is not upgradable on this. And I'm going to record a little B-roll here to get the insides here. So it looks like the only thing you're going to upgrade on this sucker is there's no way there's a socketed piece of RAM underneath. But it's cool, though, because you do have a NVMe slot right there. Kevin Wools is here. I am doing great. Heffen had the previous version of this and was very fussy about the power adapter, so it seems like they're still fussy. But it's a shame it's slightly Nerf Towel Ultra port. Yeah, so if you have to take that power adapter with you, right? Because a lot of these other mini PCs support just the standard USB PD, right? And it looks like the voltage is 12 volts, is what the requirement is. On a USB-C connector. Well, I guess we see that sometimes at variable voltages, right? My man Roman is here. My go-to guy for Ubuntu advice. Glad you're with us. CF542 is here. Yes, you were the one that recommended. I had forgotten who told me to get this. So I bought this for you. And if you want it, let me know. I'll sell it to you when I'm done for a price lower than new. Look how sharp that looks in 4K, huh, everybody? Okay, so we're going to just do a little B-roll. I'm just going to kind of like do a little lift off after my camera settles down here. Oops, I got to set the recording folder. And let's do it in new folder. We're going to call this Mele Mini PC. I have found, though, that my file sizes are just enormous now. So this is, before it was 55 gigabytes an hour, I think. Here, let me look up the exact amount. It's substantially more. And I'm streaming to you at 30 megabits per second now. Roger P. is joining us on Amazon. He wants to know, can the HDMI do 120 hertz? I believe it can at resolutions lower than 4K. So 4K max is 60. Let me see what the vMix codec is. So here are, yes, so so 1 hour of video before was 55 gigabytes. Now it is 175 gigabytes. So space is an issue now. It will be an issue. I'm going to have to move some files around to make this all work. All right, so we're going to do a little B-roll here. And we'll lift this off. Ta-da! And I believe the NVMe storage is right, I'm sorry, the eMMC is right there. But the M.2 goes in right here, and that's like a full-size one that will go the full length here. How's that look to you, everybody, on camera? It must look really nice. It also looks like they glued, so this is the Wi-Fi chip here, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And it's an Intel Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which should mean this should work okay on the Linux side. But they glued the antennas down. They don't want you getting into this thing. All right. Edmund says, I never heard of Mele before. Yeah, I think I may have looked at one of theirs before. This is one of those brands from China that you likely have never seen or heard of before. And we will see how it lightens up when I pull out, and that's because the aperture increases as I zoom out. So I'm probably going to find myself looking for new cameras. I guess I could go back down to 30 if I don't move around all that much. Because before at 1080, I had the shutters at 30, and nobody noticed any motion blur, but now with the higher resolution, the motion blur is much more visible. And Ellie says that on YouTube you can see the markings. Wow. It is a big jump in resolution if you can see that, right? That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, and Roman said the same thing. You can see the numbers on the chips. And Ellie says it should work with Linux out of the box. Yes, this will support. This has Wi-Fi 6, but it'll work with all the other flavors of Wi-Fi. And as you'll see, I got the new Synology router in. We're going to have that review up later in the week. And I was pushing close to what I get on Ethernet with that thing with Wi-Fi 6. It was pretty crazy. All right. So now we got that in place. And I've got my Ethernet cable here. So we'll plug, or sorry, HDMI. So we'll plug that in. I've got my Lenovo keyboard here. And we'll plug that keyboard in over there. It's got a good number of USB ports on it. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4. And somebody asked about the cloud. Oh, Roger asked about xCloud on this thing. Yes, it will. It should actually do very well with the Microsoft Cloud stuff. I'm assuming you're talking about the Xbox Cloud. The cable length, if you're curious. The cable length, I'd say it's probably about, I don't know how many, I'll have to measure it. It's a decent, it's better than I've seen on others, let's put it that way. But it may not be enough for what you need. We'll have to see. All right, so we're going to plug in. I'm eager to see the Wi-Fi performance, so I'm going to boot it up without the Wi-Fi. So I've got HDMI, oops. I've got my HDMI connected here. And we've got the power and the keyboard and the monitor. So I think that's all I need. And I got my red light here. So let's power it up. And we'll see what happens. Now, I've seen this happen before. And I can't recall what the cause is. We shall see. And, there we go. Looking good. And I'll add, if this crashes my system, I will be right back. I have found sometimes when I'm bringing in 4K NDI video, sometimes it goes kaboom. But it looks like it's going to survive. All right, so we're good there. And I'm going to turn my keyboard on, and we're going to log in. So you'll be able to see the output of this in 4K, because this is the 4K stream now. If you're on Amazon, you are seeing 720p, because that's the maximum that I can do. But what's interesting is if you go, and if you're interested in the 4K stuff that we've been looking at, let me go turn it up to 4K. Don't crash. Okay, good. So now we are definitely at 4K. We were at 4K. Yes, I think we're okay. So let me go down to, I like to do 4K at 200%. And it feels like we might be at 30 right now. So let me go and make sure that we've got 60 hertz running on this sucker. Let's see, advanced display. Yeah, Yeah, we're only at 30, but I can go to 60. This might crash. You know what I'm going to do to be safe? I'm going to close my NDI, and we'll boot it to 60, and then I will reconnect it, and we'll keep these changes. Okay, so we've been able to get 60 hertz. I'm only streaming at 30 because that's the limit of my cameras right now. And let me bring back in the feed. Hopefully it doesn't crash my system. Good, okay. Yeah, so I can do 60 hertz NDI video, which is what I'm delivering to you right now. Isn't that wild? All right. So we are booted up. We've taken it apart, so we got an idea as to what's inside of it. So that's good. And I got some more questions from all of you here. Let's take a look at those. $4K is looking good. Yeah, don't feel obligated to buy it. I'm totally cool if it's not for you. In fact, part of reviewing it is to make sure it is the right computer for what people are looking for. But if you want it, I'll give you right of first refusal. How does that sound? Postis loves the small PCs. Yeah, this is a fun little PC, isn't it? It's not that big. Totally silent because it's fanless. And we'll see how it does on some stuff. Marcin wants to know if I had a professional manicure done. Not yet. As you can see, my hands though look better in the summer than they do in the winter. So look at it. You can even see like the texture of the plastic on this stuff. This is wild. And you know what's crazy? These cameras I've been using for the last 3 years. Like there was this unlocked, this 4K glow up that was locked inside of these cameras. They were just not at their full potential, and now they are. What was amazing about switching was how I did have to upgrade the GPU on my computer, which is what's running everything, and that took some downtime. I did it the same day I did the network card. I figured if we're going to be down, let's go for the gusto. So I took apart my computer, I upgraded the network card, and then I also slid in the new GPU. And then I'm taking the other GPU and putting it in a computer I'm giving to the school, so we're going to be moving parts all over the place. But I was able to get everything going here. But lots of thumbs up on the resolution, which is great. Now, what did Marcin say here? Oh, you were thinking about that. Corey is here just in time. Yeah, we're just getting booted up. And Roman says, this looks like the kind of computer you would use if you're a business. Yeah, so like if you have digital signage or something, it's great for that, for sure. See if I can get this like in a spot where this camera can pick it up, because then I can show it while it's running here. But yeah, this is the kind of machine that's kind of well suited for that, because it can be mounted. It does come with a VESA mount on the back, so it can do that. And it's about 2 meters of cable length. I would say that's probably about right. Yep. I think that's what it's looking like. I am probably not going to test Plex on this because I know it'll work, but I think it would do well as a Plex server. The Tam Man is here. Yeah, these reviews do very well. They're always very consistent in the viewership they get. And Mako wants to know, would it boot as a headless server? I believe it would. Oh, sorry, and you pronounced Michael. Okay, got it. Yeah, and if it doesn't, I've got this little thing here. Let me show you one of these things. And I use this occasionally. Here it is. So if you ever have something that requires a display input, I bought these a while back. These are little like dummy HDMI things. So it's an HDMI, but it doesn't have any output on it. And what it does is it tricks your computer into thinking you've got a 1080p 60 monitor attached. And I use this on my little Surface Book Go because it never outputs 1080p unless I stick this in a dongle. And then I can get it to output. And it's easier than futzing around with software. You just plug it in and go. And these are becoming more and more useful because when I do some NDI video coming directly out of the computers, oftentimes the computers won't switch to a 1080p if they've got a 3:2 or a 16:10 aspect ratio. So this is a real quick and easy way. You just plug it in the HDMI port and you get it. You can trick it. And they cost nothing. And the GPU that I got, so I actually had it. I've been moving things around. So I came into possession of a 3080 for my computer upstairs, for my VR gaming computer, which I never have time to play with. So I put that GPU in that one, and then I have a 2080 Ti that I bought a while ago for that computer, which is now in this one. And then the 1080 that's in this one is going to the computer that's going to the school. So that's kind of the, the progression. So that's how I got a lot of questions on the GPU. So, and as we discussed on the last stream, and maybe when I finish this work, I'll show you the specs or the current usage. But right now I've got 4K 60 streams coming in, and we're only using about 30% of the GPU's overall horsepower. So I still have 70% of the GPU left, which is pretty darn good if you ask me. Yeah, it's amazing how the system is just, you know, I think my utilization is up maybe 10% overall, but most of that is GPU memory. So it's not even like, it's not even struggling to process all of this. And yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do unless I start putting some powder on, right? Because it does show my flaws, and there are many. It shows how I'm getting older. And yeah, it's a PC gaslighter, exactly. And it does have built-in Wi-Fi. It's got Wi-Fi 6. And we're going to test that first, actually. And we'll see where it goes. Wise Acres wants to know, doesn't believe that this live stream is interactive. Well, here's your proof. You're up on the screen right now. There you go. And those HDMI dummy, oh, that's interesting. That's true if it's not, so I guess maybe it needs a display source to activate QuickSync. That's actually interesting. I didn't even think of that. All right. So let's do a quick test here. We're going to load up. All right, so we got, what we've got now is Windows 11. And what I'm going to do is grab from the Microsoft Store, I'm going to grab the speedtest.net app. And what I want to try first is just to see what kind of Wi-Fi performance we get. And I do need to connect this to my Wi-Fi network. So let's do that real quick. So we're going to connect to my Wi-Fi 6 access point in the ceiling. And we got the notification that Wi-Fi just got better because we have Wi-Fi 6. All right, so now we're going to go grab the speed test app. And I like to use the app versus the website because it's not littered with advertising, so that makes it a better experience for me. I mean, I guess I could put the ad blocker on and do all that kind of stuff, but it's just easier to grab the app. And the app looks better for display purposes. And the other reason I like the app is that it doesn't show my IP address. And Screenhouse says, why can't they make these smaller and quieter? Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this stuff. And then you could do something like the Raspberry Pi here, which is even smaller and quieter. And you know what's funny? The Raspberry Pi, this is, in the ham radio world, these are the go-to computers now. Everybody who does any kind of data work with ham is using, they're not using high-end Linux machines, they are using Raspberry Pis, believe it or not. All right, so we will get that app installed. It did install a bit sluggishly, so I'm not sure what we're going to see when this this test boots up. But let's give it a go. Give it the old college try, as they say. All right, so we're going to hit go here, and I'm not expecting, you know, multi-gigabit, but I would say if we've got decent Wi-Fi 6 performance, we should get about 500 to 600 megabits downstream on this. So let's see what happens. You know, right where I thought it would land, right? Not bad. So my Mac is a little quicker. I'll get, you know, 600 or 700 megabits on the Mac. But for Wi-Fi on a cheap mini PC, it's pretty darn good, I think. Not bad. And even though I'm streaming 4K, I could still get this much speed upstream. So just to put this in perspective, I still have let's see, about, I don't know, 5,500 megabits per second left after that thing going there. All right, perfect. So that's a good Wi-Fi test. That's a pretty good result, I think, for a Wi-Fi 6 on a fanless mini PC. What do you think? And Roger P says the Raspberry Pi is $35. It used to be. Unfortunately, right now, you can't get one because they are completely sold out. But the Raspberry Pi 4 is by far the best implementation yet. I have two. I have the Raspberry Pi 400 upstairs, which has the integrated keyboard. And then this one is kind of like my go-to for production purposes. All right, so we got that done. Now, the next thing I want to try out on here is how it handles 4K 60 video on YouTube. And we have a go-to video for that. And I'm just going to search Google for it. Didn't find it. Come on now. There we go. And we're going to pull this up. And we'll pull up the stats for nerds on this in a second also once the ads go away here. All right, so let's go and flick this into 4K 60 mode. I shot this video on a weekend trip to Nantucket, Massachusetts a little while back. And I'm going to pause this real quick because I want to set up, I want to zoom in on the portion of the screen that has the stats for nerds on. So we're going to do a virtual input. We're going to really start stressing out my system here. And we're going to zoom in on the Stats for Nerds section. So I'm going to select that. And what I'm going to do is go to Position, and we're going to zoom in. This will be a kind of a cool effect once I get it working here. All right, there we go. So now what we're going to do, actually let me just do one more adjustment here. They really put that up at the upper left-hand corner now. So check this out. If we go to camera 10, which is our input, and then I've got this one here. Watch this. Zoop. Isn't that cool? So we're going to hit play. Oops. And what we're looking for is the number of drop frames that we see from here on out. Because it does take it a minute to settle in. But we are getting some drop frames. That surprises me, actually, because typically these Intel devices do not deliver drop frames like this. But let's see once it settles in here. Yeah, we're getting some drop frames. Not a lot. It's not enough that you would really notice it. But we've seen many PCs that don't get drop frames like that. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start this again, get a better zoom in there. So let's go back to here. Wish they had a way to like reset the thing on it. Actually, lose it. And 1 second. There we go. It's that scene that, for whatever reason, that panning scene is where it drops the most frames. So it's not perfect. And I've seen perfect out. Oh, you know what? Here, let's try this again. I'm going to refresh the page, and here's why. Because what I have found is that sometimes when you have the, skip the ad here. If you have anything overlaying, it tends to mess it up. So we're going to go pull up the Stats for Nerds again. And let's wait for the, there it goes. Okay, so now we can get a better look at it. Still dropping frames. I mean, is it a lot? I mean, I don't think you would notice. Well, that was a big one right there. Yeah, it's not perfect. This is running in Chrome. You know, what we used to do is we used to use Edge for this, but of course Edge is now based on Chrome, so it's not as foolproof of a thing anymore. Yeah, it's dropping a good number there. You probably wouldn't notice it all that much, but it's kind of surprising. All right, let's take a look. We got a lot of questions here. Oh my goodness, I'm so far behind. So Roger P. on the Amazon chat wants to know, what's the best web browser to use today? I use Brave because it is the most minimal from a privacy perspective. So I tend to like to use Brave. And it's pretty much Chrome with, with an ad blocker built in and a lot of, and they said it would get warm. It's definitely warm. And I wonder, and I'll check Jake's notes on this, I bet you that this thing throttles like there's no tomorrow. Well, that's interesting. So it didn't, it actually got a 96% on the 3D Mark stress test, which is surprising. Which means that it's realistic in its expectations as far as cooling is concerned. But it's probably not going to be a good media PC. All right. The Tan-Man wants to know, is it Windows 11 S mode? No, it is Windows. This is actually Windows 11 Pro, and that's a good reminder for me to check to make sure that it's actually licensed. Back in the not too recent past, I was getting these mini PCs in that were not licensed. They were running with like pirated copies of Windows. And this one is like Windows 11 Pro. But it looks as though it is activated. Yeah, 'cause some of these would come like not activated. But it's definitely running Windows 11 Pro. So for the price, actually I think a Windows 11 Pro license probably costs more than this computer does if you were to buy it at retail. Let me just get this positioned here. Yeah, so it's Windows 11 Pro. So no S mode on this one. Lon Dog is here. And let's see what else we got here for... Cyril Toon wants to know how much this is. So on the Amazon right now, this is selling for $260. And you can find the link in the video description. And yep, it is 11 Pro. All right, FBA says excellent. 4K 60 on a fanless x86 board, exactly. But it does get there. It's pretty cool. x86, did I say 4K 60 on an Express board? x86. Robert Branch is here. I'm doing great. And Londog says the Wi-Fi speed is more than you'll get. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit on the wrap-up about that 6 gig connection I've got now. Like it's hard to really find that much bandwidth out there. And we did do the speed test on it, and it is not throttling. It got a 96% on the stress test, and at the end of the test, this is from Jake's testing, it was 76 degrees Celsius, 168.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So it will, so 97% is passing, so it's not quite, it's going to throttle, but not significantly. So I'm guessing they tuned it to kind of account for that. And Brian is here for digital signage. Yeah, I think there's a lot of digital signage uses for this. And if it drops 60 frames, yep, that would mean that it would drop the equivalent of a full second of video. And we're going to check out the, all right, so I guess you all want to see the task manager while it is playing back the video. So let's pull that up. And I will give you those things. So we'll go to, I'm assuming you want to see the performance section. And what I'll do here is position it in such a way that I can get you both, and I'll show you the screen here. And what I'll do is I'll leave it running in the window. But you can see how, and this is typical of these mini PCs. It struggles when you're running it at 4K 60 to just draw the screen, especially with the web browser. Let's make sure we're at 4K 60. Yep, we're there. Okay, so here, I'll pull this up here. Yeah, the CPU is definitely getting run here. I'll pull up the Stats for Nerds while this is going here too. Stats for Nerds. There we go. It's actually doing better in a window than it did full screen. You actually know what's funny? It's not, yeah, I dropped a frame there. Let's see if it, this is where it always gets killed. Yeah, so it's dropping about what it was dropping before. And if you want to know the cost, there's a link to the Amazon chat where you can see there's a couple of different configurations, I think. And I'll update my pinned chat here because a lot of you were asking the same question there. All right. So does that satisfy everybody on the task manager? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Looks nice and sharp though, doesn't it, at 4K? Because I'm streaming out at the output resolution now, so that's awesome. All right. So let's move on. And what else was on my list? So we need to check, we got the YouTube done. The web browsing part I'm going to do when I do the actual review. If you want, though, you can see how it browses the web. We'll pull up the NASA website here. Here's the SLS. They're fueling it up finally. Yeah, it's pretty good, Seems like it's rendering pretty quickly. I would like to be vice president because you know what I would do if I was vice president? I would like have NASA as my portfolio and I would just hang out there all the time because they can't kick you out. You're the vice president, right? Look how sharp that NASA meatball looks in 4K. Yeah, it looks pretty nice. And we'll do that on the full review. Oh, you know what? I got to get Word on here too, but I'll do that later. And it's definitely getting warm, but that's by design. The sticker warns you as much. And Josh S. says, speed is lower than I thought it would be. I had the 4105 in a NUC and it hits 2.35 easy. Yeah, I think also what you get with these is this being fanless, the only way it keeps its temperature in check is to throttle a bit. All right, let's take a look at some of the other chats here. Andre says he believes the Windows version on this PC is modified. I'm not sure if it is. I mean, I don't know how I would know. I mean, I guess what you could do is re-download it from Microsoft if you have to do that. You know, it did take all the updates because Jake puts in, one of the things that Jake does is spends the 8 hours getting getting all the updates installed. And I guess if it was heavily modified, we'd probably have some kind of indicator of that. But if you feel, yeah, I mean, one thing that you could do if you're concerned about a potential modification is download Windows from scratch and install it out of the gate. And because this is almost entirely an Intel computer, I don't think you'll have a lot of driver problems. And it would, I think, get you a full-blown deal there. Joe wants to know, do I watch the Apple TV show For All Mankind? I definitely do. They had Newton's on this past week, but that's one of my go-to shows. I love that show. I think it's so well done. And Corey says, my temperature is holding at 77 degrees Celsius. Has to throttle down to prevent overheating or crashing the system for hardware protection and longevity. Yeah, and I think they all dial in those throttling thresholds there, too. But yeah, I think it's definitely struggling to get those extra pixels on screen. I've seen other mini PCs with this generation of hardware do better. So I don't know if this is, you know, designed to be used the way we're doing it here. Felipe wants to know, is there a stand to make it vertical? No, but there is a VESA mount, so you could do that. But you know what? It'll stand up on its own pretty well. You could probably 3D print something to keep it from tipping over. And there's no moving parts in it, so even if it does fall over, you're not really at risk of breaking anything. It's got a little monolith, right? It's pretty attractive, I think. I like the way it looks. Let's see here. Julie wants to know, I wonder how many hours you can run it. I don't think it'll ever overheat. It's designed not to overheat. And Steve actually makes a good point. You could put a fan on it. Exactly. Just blow some air over it, and that'll keep it running a little bit more efficiently. Would it do Lightroom? It could. It could, but I don't think it's well suited for that kind of work. Yeah, and I think Microsoft is licensing the software to them. But I think, again, if you're really concerned about it, I would go and download, you know, you could wipe, you know, just do a fresh install of Windows, you know, download the tool that makes it bootable and just kind of go from there. That would work. All right, so now I want to check out Xbox Game Cloud. DL wants to know, is the outside rubberized or just plastic? So it is plastic, not rubberized. It's got a nice texture to it. This part on the top, I believe, is some kind of metal because it's, you know, it's drawing heat away. Is that conduction? Is that the right word? So I think it's kind of like metal on the top. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like anything, to be honest with you. Like it doesn't feel like a cheap piece of plastic. It feels like it's plastic, but not cheap plastic. Yeah, actually, it's definitely pocketable. It's like the size of a. Yep. Here, I'll show it with my hand here. So I've got two hands around it. It's like the size of. It's smaller than like a paperback book. Definitely smaller than a VHS cassette tape. Although that's probably not something we can bring as a point of reference these days anymore. Josh S. says it's not a modified Windows 11. It would cost them more to mod Windows and would drive up the cost. Yeah, and these things are all about maximizing profit on commodity hardware. All right, so next up, we're going to grab the Xbox app here. And I'm going to load up the Xbox Cloud Gaming and do a little demo of that. And then we'll boot up Linux. How much time do we have on this so far? Almost an hour in already, geez. So I have to still finish up the wrap-up video. Pedro says, I just found my next mini server. Yeah, these things might be fun for that. If you're looking for a little headless mini server, I think this could do well. All right, I got to log into my Xbox thing here, so give me a second. We'll see how, so Xbox does not stream at 4K, but it will upscale to that. And we'll see how well it does at doing so. Bear with me for 1 second here, folks, while we get this part figured out. I have to log in with my other Microsoft account. But it seems like the stream is doing okay at 4K. I'm uploading a significantly higher bit rate. So before, I think I was doing 6 megabits. Now I'm doing 30. So what is that, 5 times the bit rate? All right, bear with me for 1 second here, folks, and we'll get going with this in 1 second here. What did I do wrong? All right, here's my code. SA wants to know, can it work with 2 screens? Yes, and both displays can do 4K 60. But you got to keep your expectations kind of in check there because it can only do so much. But I have found that better cooled machines with this generation hardware, at least for that 4K YouTube example, can sustain it better. And it is smaller than a Jazz drive. Scorpion is here. Hello there. I'm doing great. CodeManic wants to know, do I use YubiKeys for logins? I have set it up, but I don't currently use them. I did do a video on it. In fact, I interviewed Stina from YubiKey, or Yubico, who makes the YubiKeys. And the one reason why I haven't been using them is because it's like I never have one with me. So it's the convenience of having something with me, which is why I think that ultimately I think the smartphone as the validation tool is probably going to be where we end up on this password stuff. I know a lot of people may not like to hear that, but if you lose the key, you're flat out, right? And we're also going to connect up my Xbox controller now to this. So let me go pair a new device. And we'll go Bluetooth. And we'll see what happens here. There we go. So we'll just wait for it to show up here. All right, device is good to go. Okay, and now let's go to cloud gaming. Any requests on cloud gaming? Otherwise, I'm going to pick one. And you'll see like the interface is a little slow to navigate. And Roman says, I still can't believe you don't have a case. Yeah, the way I look at it, my case is AppleCare. That's how I look at it. All right. Okay, so Roger P wants me to try Fortnite. I don't think I have my password for Fortnite, though. It's going to take a while to log into it. Let me do Horizon 5 here. Let's just do that real quick. I just want to get something shot quickly for B-roll. All right, so now this is Xbox Cloud Gaming. So we're not running the game locally on the hardware here. And usually we get like that little rocket animation, and it doesn't seem to be popping up here. So something's gone wrong. Let's try this again. I may reboot here too, because I think it said it was installing something else that it needed. Yeah, let's try this again. And Corey says, I stop relying on passwords, which is a security issue for brute force attack unless you set up two-factor. Yeah, I have two-factor for everything. And on top of that, I also, whenever I can, I have the Face ID on my iPhone do additional authentication. Just in case somebody steals my phone with it unlocked, they can't get into my bank account. Okay, so let's go try this again. So, hang on. This happened last time with YouTube. It goes for about 55 minutes or so, and then it drops my connection, like it totally knocks me out. But the Amazon one doesn't, so it's not a connection issue on this end. I'm going to contact YouTube about this. Oh, so Roger P., are you saying that you don't have to pay for a Xbox Cloud subscription to be able to play Fortnite? It's just like you can just play for free? Okay, so we are back in the game here. And what I'll do also is give you like the full screen view of it. Now, if you're watching in 4K, this is not going to be a 4K stream from the xCloud because it doesn't stream at that resolution. But we'll see how it does. But it's weird, like this happened on the stream the other day. It was like right at the 50-minute mark, and YouTube drops the connection, and then I got to reconnect. And I wonder if, and we've never had that on the lower bit rate. I wonder if it's not quite a beta thing, but if it's just the fact that most people don't stream with this level of resolution. I don't know. All right, so we're going to jump in. Looks like it's nighttime in the game. Yeah, it seems to be fine. I don't know if I can get like a stats for nerds kind of thing up on this. Let's see. Does it do that? Nope, doesn't do that. At least not there. Let's go back to the... Here, I'll give you these. So I'm going to start here. I'm just going to do a little B-roll shot here. And then we'll cut to the full screen. But it seems to stream pretty well. I'm not seeing any real frame drops or anything. And this is off the Wi-Fi too, by the way, so it's the network is pretty good on this sucker. All right. Well, that works. Okay, so we're good there. And let's quit the game. And let's do a little Linux boot up here. Let's see how we do on that. Yeah, the realism is not quite there in this game. SA, it does not boot off of a SD card. It has a built-in 128 gigabytes of eMMC, but you can also, as you will see here, I'll roll in some B-roll here. Let's see how if my computer can handle doing 4K B-roll. You can also install an NVMe SSD in that slot right there and expand its storage. So you have 128 gigabytes built in, and then you can add the NVMe and do a little bit more if you want. Not bad. let's see what we got here. Last year's, so you have Amda Brown has last year's model of that PC. Comes in handy around the house and while traveling. He's yet to power it via a battery bank. And Roman wishes that the fingerprint readers on PCs were used more than just logging in. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more, because I know Microsoft and Google are big on this passwordless future that we're about to enter, which I think is good. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with YouTube with this new. So it happened almost exactly at the same time last time, in that YouTube dropped me about 50 minutes in. And it happened at exactly the same mark today. And it'll be fine now for the next 50 minutes. It's weird. So I'm going to file a ticket with them. I have customer service, you know, or I'm supposedly do. Okay, so now I'm going to get my Linux boot drive here. And I need to go find another cable for it, which I might have in front of me. Let's see. Do I? Yes, I do. Perfect. And we're just going to boot it into Ubuntu and see how it does there. The ham radio community loves PCs like this. I'm beginning to learn that. So what's nice is that data modes in ham radio don't require all that much horsepower. So the Raspberry Pi, a lot of these guys are using the Raspberry Pi Zero even, if you can believe that. So Jake did run a few games on this. Let me see what he has recorded here. So he did Half-Life 2. Here, I'll load these in if you're curious. Rocket League. I don't think any of them ran very well. Let me check his notes. I'll tell you how they ran. If you want to see it, I can show it to you, but I don't think they're going to run very, very well. So he said that Shovel Knight was able to do 1080p 60. Rocket League, 720, lowest settings, 30 to 40 frames per second. Half-Life 2 ran fine, because it always does. And everything else, you could not get. He said Fortnite was not worth attempting. Back to our thing there. So it's pretty funny. Andrew Cervantes is here. Thank you for the follow. Says, am I your dad? I don't mind. I'm a dad. I'm not sure if I'm your dad, but I am a dad. I have the experience of dadhood. So that's something. All right, let me, I think I'm pushing my luck with this NDI thing, so I'm going to turn that off, and we're going to boot this up. And we're going to force the computer to boot into our Linux device here. And see, what's nice about this, it's generic enough that you just do the, and by the way, if you want to see the BIOS, and you know what, maybe I'll connect this again so you can see the BIOS. Because they give you a lot of the BIOS options. I'm probably not going to focus on this, but it might be worth just recording some B-roll of that. So I'll kind of scroll through everything so you can see all the different. There's an overclocking performance menu here. And you can enable it. Oh boy, yeah, there's a lot. So that's what's fun about these computers, is that you get a ton of options of things that you can mess around with on there. But it is tuned for what makes the most sense given the hardware that they've put in place here. So let's force a boot of the, give me a second, I'm going to close out my thing here. I'm going to boot off of the stock plop. And now we're going to see how Linux functions on this sucker. Joe Tyson wants to know, does it support VTX? You know, I'll take a look the next time we boot it, and we'll see what we get. It looks like it's like standard Intel. Oh, it didn't boot off the drive, did it? And Ellie says it supports VTX and VTD. All right, so let me figure out how to get this hard drive to boot. So I told it to boot off of it, but it kind of went back to the Windows thing. So let's try this again. I wonder if there's a boot screen. I had a few requests for the thermal configuration. So let's look at that also, and then we'll see if we can force a... Did I miss my opportunity here? I think I did. I did miss it. It is comforting, though, that this is what you see when you boot it up, which leads me to think it's like, I mean, who knows? They could have just put their own Intel thing in there. And, oh, the question about secure boot. Maybe I didn't have secure boot disabled. Let's see what we get here. Okay, so that's what happened. I had secure boot on. All right, so we're going to fix that now. So delete, 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 delete. There we go. Okay. So boot, secure boot was on. Where is secure boot? Security. Secure boot. Nope, secure boot is disabled. It is disabled, not active. All right, and then I believe Roman wanted to see thermal configuration. Here, let me give you the screen again. I'm pushing my luck with this NDI thing. It's going to crash my system at some point. I'm not touching any of this because I'm gonna F it up. I am going to record this, though, because this might be of interest to somebody. Platform thermal configuration. Critical trip point, 119 degrees C. That seems hot to me. Intel dynamic tuning technology enabled. So there you go. All right, let's go back over to boot. You know what I'm going to do here? I'm just going to force it to have this thing be my top option. Oops. So I'm going to move it up here. I got to move this up. I hate these. This is like the worst possible interface you can imagine because you have to like do this until it gets up to the top. So boot option 1 is going to be the UEFI OS, the stock plop, which is what we're booting from. And let me kill this again. And let's try and save this and exit and see if it does it this time. Ah, there we go. See, that went like that. Ubuntu. Yes, please. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Roman. I have no idea. So that's why a lot of times with this like super tweaky stuff, I just like put the stuff on screen, and that usually gets the answer that viewers into that question might want. And here we go. You know what I found too, a lot of times, that Ubuntu in particular, or any Linux build for that matter, tends to run faster on these than Windows does because it's just, you can also take away all the stuff that you don't need. So that tends to be a nicer experience. Boom, look at that. Linux. So think about this. You could put in a nice big NVMe and dual boot it, right? Put in like a terabyte, give yourself 500 gigs on Windows and 500 gigs on Ubuntu or some other distribution. And I'm going to pull up the full screen here because we're going to capture some B-roll. Isn't it beautiful? And what we're going to do first is get it on the Wi-Fi. Hopefully it supports the Wi-Fi. I'm sure it will because it's Intel, right? Yep, it's on the Wi-Fi. So that is working. And I'm going to activate the audio But before I do, I'm going to turn down the audio so I don't blow your eardrums out. So I want to make sure that the audio works. So if we go over to Firefox. Usually takes a second or two for it to boot the first time. Juliana says, these tiny PCs are cute, but I don't think any of them run off USB power yet. There are some that are slightly larger that do. I've reviewed a bunch of them that do run off of the, they run off of, I'm just losing my train of thought. They run off of the USB-C ports. You can actually plug in a docking station, and they have, some of the B-Links that I've looked at do that, but they're much larger.
Thinking about going solar, but
nope,
not sure
I'm not.
whether it's
well, maybe I should say maybe I'm thinking about it, but not from you. Okay, so yeah, it looks like the sound works too. So that's good. All right, so let's skip the trial. You know what we should try before we finish? I will try that video again and see if it if it can run run that. What is I have no idea what these things are. So you tell me what you need me to do, and I will do it for you. I've hit the limit of my technical expertise on that. And yeah, I'm pretty sure, I will check on this, but I'm pretty sure that you can switch to that. If I can boot off a USB drive, I'm pretty sure I can boot that off. And Roman says, yeah, right, Intel with Ubuntu together, right? Yeah, the Microsoft with the Ubuntu one, that to me is the best. And Steve says, multi-boot rather than dual boot Windows and Linux. Less boot issues with updates messing up boot settings. So there you go. You got lots of options with this. And William wants to know, when did the stream begin? I didn't get a notice on YouTube again. I started this about an hour and 5 minutes ago. All right, so we're going to do... Buddy, it's Lon.TV, and I apologize for my appearance, but I'm going to turn the audio off here, and we're going to pull up LibreOffice. I always like to have like a few things running as an example. Then I'll grab, I always like to get, LibreOffice Calc going too. Yeah, it's right on the front page of the Ubuntu App Store. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah, works great. Good stuff. All right. So you know what we'll do is we will check out that video again and see if it does any better in Ubuntu versus Windows. That might be kind of fun to see that, right? Look how nice this looks. Nice and sharp. What's fun is that I can now show you what I see, or close to what I see on the screen. All right, so let me go and pull up the extras channel. And let's do a search for Nantucket. We'll see if it drops frames like it did before. Stats for nerds. Oh, you know what? I wonder. I thought we were at 4K, but maybe not. Let's see. Oh, no, we're only at 1080p. All right, so let's boot it up. If I crash, I'll be right back. At 60 hertz. So we were only, I got to redo the footage on this one because we were only at 1080p a second ago. Ah, don't crash. Okay, good. So now I can give you exactly what it looks like. And let's go boot this sucker up to 4K now. Oh, it's dropping like crazy. Yeah, I can't even play it back. So I'm wondering if it's the, let me refresh it and see if that does anything. I wonder if this might be Firefox and it's in it, like maybe this version of Firefox doesn't support Intel decoding, possibly? Because it's not even playable. Like it can't even handle it. Now it's going. Oh, yeah. Second I move my mouse, like any type of overlay will do that, typically. So we should probably make note of that. Like it's just like giving up. It's like, all right, let's just try it. We'll just give up. Actually, it just went down. So this is funny. It just switched down to 1080p, and it's still dropping frames at 1080p also. And I'm guessing that's a driver issue more than anything. But let's just do my little demo here. I'll make a note of this for the... But the audio works, so that was good, right? So that's a good thing. And it is able to run the apps quite nicely. Those seem to come up pretty quick. It's like a 30 frames per second video, no problem. It's like the 4K stuff and the 60 frames per second stuff that it kind of stumbles on. More so than it did on the Windows side, as you saw. So that could be just like an Intel decoding driver issue. Somebody pointed out that these Jasper Lake processors aren't fully supported just yet. So that could be. Oh, I see. So Roman says that Firefox has an issue. Okay, so I don't think there is a version of Chrome installed by default on here, but I might be able to grab one as a package. Let me see if like Brave is on the store here. I'm going to be really lazy and just search the store for it. Let's see. Is there a search on this sucker? Here it is. Ah, look at that. And I'm pretty sure I can install this on my portable installation here. If I'm not mistaken, I think this will follow to the next time I boot it. I don't know. Got some new followers on Amazon. Julia Nuss, thank you for following me. And Josh Mauzan also started following me on Amazon. Thank you. Yeah, I guess I could do the sudo apt-get, couldn't I? But I just point and clicked my way on this one. We'll see if it does any better. There it is, Brave web browser. And we'll do a search for Nantucket. YouTube's probably wonder what's the interest in this video all of a sudden. All right, so go 2160. It's still choking, but we're also moving things around here. So let's see if that settles down. Yeah, same issue here. And this is a Chromium-based browser. So maybe we'll try Chromium real quick and see if that does any better, but it looks like it's kind of doing the same thing we saw there before. So let me go into Terminal real quick and we'll try one last thing and see how that does. But if you're not watching 60 frames per second content on here, I think it, could do pretty good. Install. I spelled it wrong, didn't I? CC. No, I spelled it right. Browser. Sudo app. Am I spelling it wrong? I think I am. No, I'm spelling it right. CHROMIUM-browser. I don't think it's going to perform any better, to be honest with you, but it does seem to work overall. I mean, it detected all the hardware, minus the video decoding, so there you go. Let's do a sudo get app update here. But yeah, this is, I would say I'm not going to recommend this as a yeah, it's not finding Chromium. I probably have to go, yeah, it's not finding it. I think for the purposes of being like a portable little server or something, it might work, but okay, let's try the Ubuntu store version. Let's try that real quick. We'll just do one more thing just to rule out. Here it's Chromium. We'll give this a go and see what we get on Chromium. But I just, again, love that I can just send you this beautiful 4K image so you can see exactly what it looks like for me. All right, so now we've got Chromium installed. And we'll go over here and boot this up. All right. And let's see what we get. Oh, John Prawl, thank you very much for the super chat. It's very generous of you. Thank you. Hopefully I saved you some money. Either I saved you money or helped confirm a decision, right? So let's go back to YouTube. I have a feeling it's going to perform exactly the same as Brave and Firefox did, but we'll give it the old college try here and see what we end up with. And it could just be a lack of optimization for and I have a YouTube Premium account, but when you're not logged in, you get all the ads again. So I definitely can sympathize with people who are not fans of the YouTube advertising. All right, so here we are. Yeah, same issue. I don't even need to pull up stats for nerds. You can just see the twirly whirly thing there. So there you go on that. Yeah, here's a good question, actually. Yeah, these things tend to suffer a bit. And I've never found a mini PC, especially in the 4K world now, that works well as a ooh, it's pretty warm. I'm not finding many, Windows PCs that work well as a 4K home theater PC. They don't, the HDR is problematic. You often can't get the lossless audio. Like the NVIDIA Shield, it's funny, like if we ever lose the NVIDIA Shield as a device, it'll be a really bad day because that thing is just amazing. And again, John, thank you very much for your super chat. I wanted to get that up on screen. It just showed up on my desktop here. Let me pull up. Somebody asked a really good question about portable servers. Yeah, here's Mark A. Who uses portable servers? And Amda Brown points out that he uses, now, not necessarily as a server necessarily, but he uses his mini PC to control an ATEM device, a video switcher. I know the ham radio community is big on portability. One of the things, especially the people that are in the emergency response areas of ham radio, they really are into having these go kits where you've got everything you need, including the computer, in a box that can run off of battery power. So these little devices, in particular the Raspberry Pi, seem to be really popular for that. But yeah, good stuff. All right. And CF542 says, yeah, it's so good. Like it would be, and I hope, and the other thing is, they work for so long. I still use my 2015 one on most of my TVs. I've got the new one on my OLED upstairs for the Dolby Vision stuff, but by and large, like I haven't stopped using the ones I bought 7 years ago. Is that how long it was? Crazy. Nathan, thank you for the follow on Amazon. All right, everybody. Here's a good comment here. Raymond says, browsers don't support hardware encoding in Linux. However, VLC does and can be used to play on YouTube. I never knew that. All right. So I've got to run. I got to get the wrap-up video edited. And we'll see how, this is the first video 4K thing I sent over to Jake. So we'll see how that works out. And I got to get in touch with YouTube because it seems like right when I hit the 50-minute mark is when it drops me, and then it just reconnects and no problem. It's really weird. So we will come back to that. But I appreciate everyone's helpful commentary as we have done today's live stream. And Zarif says that I guess ARM PCs will change the market. I don't know if this is a trash chip. I think this is actually a very useful chip because you get, you know, you've got a full x86 PC in a fanless box. And I think if you're doing, you know, for multimedia, probably not ideal, at least in a fanless setup like this. But, you know, if you were looking for a Linux server that can run Linux-y things, I think it's great for that. And Steve misses the NVIDIA tablet. Yeah, and you still can't find a tablet. Well, I guess the iPads are faster, but you know, on the Android side, you can't find something faster than that. So, all right. Well, I got to jet, everybody, but I appreciate everyone's time today. It's always helpful to do these live. I've got another one of these that we'll look at in the next couple days. So set your notifications. We'll be doing exactly the same thing we just did here. And I'm going to record this video tomorrow, and depending on timing, we might come back with that other one tomorrow as a stream, or maybe on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'm going to do a quick little jaunt to PepCom. We're going to do a little trade show thing. And I've engineered a way to cover these things with one camera. I have a GoPro that I'm going to have on my microphone. It'll be fun. It's going to be a fun little experiment. So we'll see where that goes. But and we'll go from there. And Roman says that the Shield tablet is just the Nintendo Switch with Tegra. That's right. Yeah, I think the tablet had the K1, and the Shield has the same Switch processor, if I'm not mistaken. All right. I got a jet, but I will catch you all on the next one. Thanks for watching, and I will be uploading the wrap-up in a little bit. That will be online at around 6:45 this evening. And have a great day, everybody, and thank you all for your support. Bye-bye.